What's going on, y'all? It's the RapNerd, and I am here today to review the latest entry in the DCEU Wonder Woman 84. So, first of all, let me thank HBO Max, Warner Brothers, Patty Jenkins, Gal Gadot, Jason Kilar for even allowing this movie to hit HBO Max, because this literally made my Christmas. The entire day I was just like, oh, today's the day. So I thank y'all for allowing us to watch from home, and I hope this continues, because one thing that this has allowed me as a reviewer to do is watch it twice before I review it. So I watched it last night, woke up, watched it again, so it was able to let me hone in on what my thoughts about the film are, because you always go into the film with expectations, and then you watch it, and sometimes whatever could happen could make your expectations not match with what you saw. So sometimes that can throw you off, but being able to rewatch it again and knowing what I had, I can kind of assess it better. So let's get into it. Now, what do I stand on this movie? I'm gonna be honest, I am kind of dead smack in the middle. I don't love this film, but I don't hate it at all, because it's not bad. But I'm right here, because the entirety of this film, it's kind of like good thing, and then something takes that back. Good thing, something takes it back. Good thing, like it's a continuing cycle as I watch this movie, and I'll get started on why. So first, the performances are all stellar. Every actor and actress who comes to the table kills it. Gal is Diana Prince, Wonder Woman. Kristen Wiig is Cheetah. Pedro Pascal is Max Lord. Steve Trevor is Chris Pine. Like, everybody does a great job. So that's already something that is top tier here. Now, the characters, this is where it kind of gets weird, because I feel like while Pedro and Kristen both killed it, I think the character design within the story was a bit to me. Like, I wish that Kristen got more of the screen time over Pedro, because Maxwell is the overarching, arching villain, and Kristen kind of plays the back. And she was so fantastic. Like, from what we did see, I wanted to see more of her, because, okay, I'm gonna tell you why. And if you've seen the trailers, Maxwell is this rich guy, and trying to get more. It's greed that's fueling his fire. So I feel like he's kind of a textbook comic book villain, which is okay. I'm not mad at that, but it's some inconsistencies with the way they present the story. It's kind of like, Miles Sporley, he has a kid, and they kind of just use him as a caveat to show, like, oh, Maxwell's not that bad of a guy. He wants to do good. He has a son, and I feel like that's the only thing you really see from him being a good man, per se. And then at the end, you'll see why I'm saying that the movie is kind of like, that's the thing that we use to, like, undo what he wants to do. And I kind of just, it's one of those sympathy for the devil things. It's like you're trying to make sympathy, you're trying to get us to sympathize with him, and I just didn't get that. On top of that, they show his upbringing and past, like, in literally this amount of time, to kind of get you to pull you in, like, oh, well, he's doing this because of that. And I'm just like, I feel like there could have been more to it. Like, I definitely understand what they were trying to build with him. Whereas Kristen, she actually seems like a genuinely good person that just went bad. And I would have loved to see more of her and how her upbringing was, and how she is the person she is, and what made her so timid, and why does she want to, lash out so much. I think, Cheetah is one of the Wonder Woman's, like, best villains. So to me, to see her put as a side character, I was just kind of like, oh, come on, man. And then when she turns into Cheetah, it's literally like, and you don't really get a lot from her. Like, you see her and you're like, oh, this is fire. But by the time you see her, you're not gonna see her anymore. You're like, oh, this is it. We're only gonna see her here, and that was kind of a bummer. Steve Trevor, the way he came back, I see what they were going for, but it's kind of creepy, and I think it could have been executed better to make another scene pay off well. So, with Gal, I mean, she's Wonder Woman. I mean, she owns the character. at this point, she can literally be Gal. Excuse me. She can literally be Diana for 5 more movies. I mean, she owns this character. I think her acting has definitely stepped up. There are a few scenes that, you know what I'm talking about if you've seen a movie, that really pull on the heart strings, and she sells every single thing in this film as far as from her standpoint. So phenomenal. Now let's go on to the story. Well, story and tone, I'll say that. You know, watching these clips that have been releasing, it definitely seems like the film is a lot more added, like, nostalgia / cheesiness. And I hate to use that term, but that's kind of what it is, because I feel like Patty wanted to make a Donner-esque film, a Donner-esque Superman film with this Wonder Woman, and you definitely get the sense of that. But what kind of is a weird shift is that first sequence, right, that they showed at, you know, Fandom. That's literally the beginning of the film, and it's way longer than what they show. And to me, it's good when you're watching it for the first time, but then when you watch the rest of the movie, you're like, that could have been cut short or removed totally, because I feel like that sequence definitely sets the wrong tone that's going to be presented in the rest of the movie. And that threw me off the first watch. I was like getting into it, and then, you know, it's a past scene, so when it goes to the future, it's so totally different. It's kind of like, okay. And you have moments where it's really like I appreciate, like, I think like I'll probably say the first half of the film is going for that Donner's Superman feel and that 80s nostalgia. I even like the grain that they put on, you know, the footage to make it really look like an 80s movie. So I thought that was fire. That, you know, the little editing choices they use, the music choices that they really want you to, you know, realize we're in the 80s, the clothing, all of that was good. But I feel like they didn't quite know what they wanted to stick to, because the second half goes an entirely different direction, in my opinion. Like, it ends up starting to feel more like a modern action film from, you know, the second half, and that's the half that I liked a lot. I like it a lot more than the first half, because the first half is kind of like a bunch of, like, I want to say it's backstory, but it's a lot more filler, in my opinion. Like, it's kind of just things to service it's hard to explain without spoiling it, but it's not like the first half doesn't move fast. It's giving you a lot of information, but none of it really is that needed for the second half of the film. So like the first half being full of filler, I think that there is some information that could have been switched out for what we see for backstory. One in particular is the golden armor, right? The beginning of the movie kind of gives you an idea about what it is. It tells you, but that goes into why I feel like it should have been cut, because there's a scene later that actually tells you about the armor, right? And the scene is literally this big again, and that, to me, that's such a large part of the film, marketing and story-wise. That sequence to me should have been 10 to 15 minutes to explain more of it, because you see it and you're kind of like, that's it? Oh, okay, all right. And that's what I mean kind of with the filler information that the movie gives you, opposed to what can actually work for the film. And you kind of wonder where it's going. And again, like, it hits that second half and you're like, oh, okay, here we go. And that's the part that I like a lot more. And it's just an identity issue from that standpoint. Like, I don't mind the cheesiness. Like, I wish they actually would have stuck to that the entire movie to make it be like, this is what it is, and we're going for that feel. But with it splitting like that, it kind of makes it a bit strange to watch. It go, you know, from there to all the way it is. And yeah, that's one issue I have with it. Another one of the big issues, man, I can't even front, is the stunt work and the action sequences took not even a step back, but a leap back. Like, some of these scenes I'm watching, and the wire work is so obvious that it just takes me out of it. I'm like, what happened between this and Wonder Woman that came in 2017? Like, you seen the mall scene where, you know, she's jumping and it's just literally like, it's super obvious. And to me, it's just, like I said, it's jarring to me. Me being an action guy, and me seeing the first one and what that was, it's, I wasn't a big fan of it, man. Like, it was kind of painful to watch some of the fighting and the action sequences, knowing how lackluster and kind of fake looking they are. And again, I know that they're going for the 80s cheesiness, but it's just like, it's kind of like, you did all of this in the first film. Like, she's way more skillful, and it even comes across that way in the first one, in comparison to this one. Like, this one, it just seems like they wanted to make Diana not as powerful, or just kind of hold herself back in the sense of going against, regular humans, which I can understand because she knows more. But it's just a huge change when you start to think about the first one. Like the mall scene, it's like something out of a cartoon, an 80s cartoon. And again, if they would have kept that up the whole time, I could be like, yo, okay, this is what it is. But later down the line, when you see a different, action sequence, like you take the action sequence I did like, because it was the White House in the third act, those two are the ones that I did like. But everything prior to that, I was not a fan of. Even when she's running, like you can clearly see, like her feet are barely touching the ground, and you can see that it's wire work, and that kind of takes me out of it. And again, I'm about to spoil something. I caught myself, but I think some of the VFX too look strange because of how bright everything is. The way the scene is lit, I'm not gonna say it looks fake, because that's not what I'm saying at all. But it's something about the way the VFX were handled in this film that are vastly different than Wonder Woman from 2017. And then the way that it ends kind of is one of those, you can see the ending coming from a mile away, pretty much. It kind of presents an idea to you, in that third act of like how they can fix the situation. But of course, they don't go that way, and it just makes the movie safe. And that's kind of one of the things about this entire movie, and that kind of is like, they played it safe a lot. Like, to me, this is the standard comic book movie that you can see anywhere, And some people may like that more than something that's a little bit more edgy, like the first one. Like, I think the first one had a little bit more raw grit to it, and a bigger sense of danger to it than it did with this one. That kind of was a little bit of a letdown for me. One of the other positives, though, is the music is incredible. Hans Zimmer's is amazing. Like, his score from start to finish, the music is fantastic. I really like Cheetah's score. As you've heard, Beautiful Lie, when it hits, it's probably my favorite part of the movie, just because it just invokes so much emotion, and what's being done while this music is playing, to me, is extremely powerful, and it kind of offsets what, it's hard for me to say without spoiling, but during that sequence, there's stuff that's happening that's kind of like, really? Like, but with it playing and other things happening during that scene, it makes it extremely powerful for me. There's one scene where Diana / Gal, her performance is just like so damn good that you gotta feel something in your heart. And when you see it, it's a resolution to the in resolution, and it is really, really heart-wrenching. But again, it leads into a scene with some bad stunt work, and it kind of just is like, and that's pretty much what I can say. Like I said, I'm not in love with it. I don't hate it either. I watched it twice, and I kind of felt the same way both times. And I'm kind of disappointed. I'm not gonna front. A little underwhelmed from what I felt like it was going to be. There are just some writing choices that I don't think work out. Yeah, I don't really know what else to say without spoiling it, because there's a lot of things I could get into spoilers to be like, this is an example of what I mean. But I know some people haven't seen it yet, so I'm gonna wait, and this is one movie I kind of do want to do a spoiler review. If you want to see a spoiler review so I can get more in depth about my issues with the film, I would love to do that, because I really can't do it without spoiling it. But it's okay. I would say that. I think out of all the DCEU movies thus far, this might be, this might be my least favorite. And I don't count Justice League 17, so that's not what I'm counting. But yeah, this might be at the bottom for me personally. And that's not to say it's bad, so please don't take it as that. But yeah, that's all I really have to say about it. So what do you guys think? Leave a comment. If you disagree, please don't like bomb me with stuff. You know, it's just an opinion. If you don't agree, that's cool. But anyway, y'all stay safe out there. Go on to the new year. New movies next year. Thank goodness we do more reviews. And thank you for subscribing and watching. RapNerd out. Peace.